Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank Podcast. I'm here with Josh,
Hello, hello.
a fellow Jaws fan. I like to see it.
That's right.
Even would you consider that a horror movie? Because I've talked to some horror enthusiasts, and they're like, "It's not a horror movie." I'm like, first of all, have you ever been in a pool on seeing Jaws on the big screen? Because that'll get you freaked out pretty fast.
I've heard that there are people that do that, and I don't know if I would feel comfortable with it. It is a horror movie in my opinion, but it's one of those. It's like a movie like Gremlins. Gremlins is a horror movie, but it's also a comedy. So I kind of throw Jaws into like a horror adventure sort of thing because it's very much a horror movie when you start watching it. But as you progress and you get towards the end of it, it becomes a nice big adventure film. So but still has the horror elements. I mean, that whole scene with them talking in the galley and they're talking about the Indianapolis and being in the water and the sharks picking people off. That is some intense stuff and could fit in any horror movie. So yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely consider Jaws a horror movie. I don't see why people couldn't.
I think the people that don't consider it one is like because it captures the main fear of people. It's like sharks or like, but it's the same thing. Like Michael Myers, they say that's a little bit extraordinary because it's a psycho killer. But I'm like, that's the same fear for a lot of people as being picked up by a hitchhiker. I have that fear every time I pick one up, but I keep
Yep.
doing it because
Mm.
maybe one might have a Bob Barker size check for me to be able to have. So I keep banking it on that. So hopefully people are like, oh, he's just a good person. No, I'm just looking for the right hitchhiker that's like, you just won $1 million because I'm really rich. And I'm like, oh, really?
Willing to take that chance.
Definitely. I mean, how big of a fan are you? Do you know the show me the way to go home?
Home, home, home.
Um,
I'm tired and I want to go to bed. Do-do-do-do.
I had a little drink about an hour ago and it's
Man,
gotten
I got
right
it right
to.
to my head. Yep,
I
there you
love
go.
it. Look at that. We
It's
harmonized.
it's a staple in my house. Every 4th of July we watch it. Every time we feel the need to watch it. Anytime it's on TV, it's one of those movies, man. It came out in '75 before I was born, but it was a staple in my house, and I watched it over and over again. That's the other side of it too. Is like it could be considered a horror movie, but it's one of those that, like I don't think a kid would have a problem sitting down and watching it like I did when I was younger. And it's just one of those movies that's endlessly rewatchable. The more you rewatch it, the more you find new stuff in it, and you understand things differently. I mean, you watch it as a kid, you think some things are happening because of this, and this, and then you get older and you realize, oh, there's more to it than that. I think that's really what makes a movie withstand the test of time is really if it resonates with you as a child and continues to resonate with you as an adult and it continues to get better as opposed to I'm sure you and many other people have movies that you loved when you were a kid but you go back to now and you're like good god, why did I like this movie so much?
Yeah, sometimes you don't want to rewatch them, but I think that's just there's an issue I have with like the film industry nowadays. It doesn't seem like a lot of movies that are coming out are going to be ones that are going to stand the test of time. It seems like they're just in there for a quick glimpse and out. But like if you go back into the day, I mean, I watched a whole Facebook rabbit hole this morning of just constantly old shows from like the 90s or like the 80s that are just like really old school cartoons like Ren and Stimpy where like
Yeah.
none of the sound effects matched up with the words that was going on the screen at the time, but you realized how ridiculous all this was. Like, how did the show get made? All the jokes that were being told that went over my head as a kid. But you're looking back on like, this stands the test of time. This is something that is rewatchable because it's just about the same level as it was when I was a kid.
Right. And it's funny, I just watched Tenet for the first time, the new Christopher Nolan movie, and a lot of people hold that guy in very high regard. Me myself, I mean, when Dark Knight came out, and I really got into film a lot, and started recognizing directors for what they were and what they've done, Christopher Nolan was one of those guys that blew me away, and Inception was a big part of that. I still go back and watch Inception over and over again, and impressed by things that I've found or things that I think could be going on or theories that people have about it. But we just watched Tenet, and while that could take place in the same universe as Inception, which I think is a movie that will withhold the test of time, I don't think this one's going to fall into that category because it's just so confusing and like I don't know. I think he reached for too big. He went for too big of a concept in this. Whereas, Inception, the first time I watched it, it left me with questions, but I was able to follow what was going on. Tenet doesn't do that. I'm still confused as I ever could be about what happened in that movie. And it's funny, like I'm wondering if that movie over the test of time is going to be one that people are going to pick apart and they're going to universally love because of what's going on in it, or if it is entirely too high concept and people are just going to leave it by the wayside. 2020 might have a lot to do with that, considering people didn't get the movie going experience this year and didn't get to experience it in the theaters like the filmmaker intended. So I don't know if seeing it in a theater would have made it any better, but I can absolutely understand where you're coming from there. Like it's funny to watch a movie and wonder how it will do with the test of time.
Well, like
Uh,
the product seems like it's just trying to hit like a trend. Like I just watched, I think, a movie from like 2014, and the person's like YOLO in the thing. I was like, oh my God, remember when that was a thing? Like the come at me bro t-shirts and all that
yeah.
stuff that would come. Like that movie does not fit for now, but it was fit for that trend at the time. And I'm like, is that what the directors are going for now? I'm not seeing a whole lot where it's gonna be like, this is something I'm gonna want to watch 20 years. Like one of the all-time test of time, I would say, videos in my mind comes from the one that we always usually watch when it leads up to Christmas, A Christmas Story. That is a classic that is like it's still being played constantly today when it gets around to the season 4. Jaws is still one that gets played on AMC's Fear Fest. But like,
Mhm.
are we going to be watching, I don't know, name a new movie that's came out in the past 5 years? I don't see those
Right.
things being played 24/7. I think I Am
Well,
Legend finally came around because with the vaccine, everyone's starting to realize, hey, let's wait a couple months.
yeah, I mean, it's like apocalypse movies kind of have a new meaning to everyone. It's when all of this stuff started to jump off, everybody went back to Contagion and started watching that. When that movie came out, it was, I mean, I like that movie and it's a good movie, but nobody really talked about it, or it wasn't this big blockbuster movie. It wasn't thing that it was popular in pop culture. But when this quarantine hit, it was like, oh, everybody, like if you went on Apple iTunes and looked at the hot trending movies for the time, that movie was at the top of the list. And I was like, that's not the movie you want to be watching right now.
They have a movie coming next year that it's the disease is called COVID-20.
Wow.
And literally what it is just like, I mean, if this whole thing, and we're not even out of the neck of the woods yet. And that's what's scary is the fact that they're
Yeah.
making a movie still on that factor. But it's like people are immune. There are some that are messengers, but the whole city looks like I Am Legend, like apocalyptic type thing. And people are
Hmm.
like militaries going to people's houses, pulling out the infected and killing them. So
Yeah.
it's like this movie's coming out next year, and we don't even see an end. We thought this was going to end like a couple months, and no, it's been like we're already 9 months in. So it's like
Yeah.
that's risky for the times, though. But like the whole industry's changed. Everything's going to streaming. I miss, and I'll be the first to say it, probably like you probably feel the same on. I miss Blockbuster. I miss those fucking stores. I miss
Yeah.
going in as a kid and seeing the awkward guy behind the counter, like, what are you buying? That was the first time I ever watched a freaking lesbian porno in front of my grandma
Right.
because
Had
she was.
the little room. Well, and you go into the video stores and there was the little room in the back that the kids weren't allowed in, but the adults were.
Yes, I remember. Like I used to go. And to my grandparents lived in Baltimore. I live in Ocean City. So it's about a 3-hour drive. But whenever I would go to my grandmom's house, and I didn't take me until the age of 20 to find out that she was a lesbian. But I remember it was her roommate. We went to Blockbuster and we picked out a movie. And what I thought was like a good movie had a lesbian love scene in it. So I'm sitting there watching it uncomfortable. I turned it off. I was like, I'm so sorry. Like it's fine. It's fine. Now I look back on it, they were probably enjoying it.
Hmm.
But it's those awkward things too. I loved going there. They had a pinball machine in there too. They had hot fries you could buy. I mean, those video store rentals, those types of things, it's like Barnes and Noble when people want to go pick up a classic book or something. It's about
Yep.
the atmosphere when you go there and you grab yeah, it sucks that you have to return it and stuff. It's kind of like when Redbox came in, I was like, all right, it's like a low grade version of Blockbuster, except
Yeah.
it's not that same interaction feel.
And that's I host a podcast myself called the VHS Files. We talk about our whole theme is trying to put ourselves and the way we talk about movies back into that aspect of being in a video store and being with a group of people that are talking about the movies that came out at that whatever time of the decade or whatever, and kind of reminiscing about the times of when we would go to a video store, rent a movie, and we either loved it didn't love it so much, or just thought, oh my God, what did I just spend my money on? But it's one of those things that molded us, like me and the people that are on my podcast. It's my wife and two other friends of mine. Um, just those memories about going to a video store, picking up a movie, and maybe you watched it and once and that was it. Maybe you rented it multiple times, but it was one of those things where it was always there, and it was always fun to go pick out a movie on a Friday night, spend the weekend with your friends, your family, whatever, watching a movie. And it really kind of molded who we are as movie fans. Now, like you said, with streaming, and now that COVID has kind of changed the film industry, and HBO is going to be releasing all of these new movies that are coming out in theaters on streaming when they hit theaters, it's going to be, things have changed, and I don't know if they're going to go back to the way they were. So a lot of our podcast is just really trying to reminisce and and let people know, and try to remember that time when movies were a lot more involved than just being able to turn on your TV and watch a movie.
And the
You
more
actually had to put effort into going to see a movie, and that's why they stick with you. You put forth the effort to try and watch a movie. It either resonated with you or it didn't, and that's your whole reasoning behind loving movies. I mean, there are some movies I remember distinct vividly about how I rented them multiple times and how much I loved watching them. And there are other movies like Jaws. I can't remember the first time I saw that movie. I just know it was on all the time in my house. Therefore, the more I saw it, the more I watched it. I even love the sequels, even the bad ones. I will watch them just because they hold a special place in my heart. I don't know if the movies and the movie industry are going to be doing things like that now in this time, because of the way things are changing, that are going to resonate with people like that. You
I have
know, uh,
I have a few issues on it because I don't like the digital copies of stuff. I don't like having it on there because then if I lose my account, then it's like I don't have that anymore. So something I bought I don't own. But
mhm.
I think the most relatable experience you can get to going to like an old Blockbuster now is like when you cut your hand on a Jason Bourne Blu-ray disc at Walmart in the $5 bin. Like it's like
Yeah.
there's not really that experience of grabbing something. Like I'll ask you this, but same thing for me is like I had a specific memory of going to a rental place. All the time when I was a kid, my buddy lived right next to one. So we're little kids.
Yeah.
His parents left. We skated down to the video store and we picked up Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the age of like
Hmm.
10.
Yeah.
So it was
Hmm.
like, oh my God, they're gone. We're gonna watch this. And it was a big mistake. But I remember getting bags and bags upon hot fries and Mountain Dews and then strolling back to the house and everything and playing those videos at night. Like it's those experiences. But then like my town that was named world's smallest, coolest small town or something.
Hmm.
Ridiculous. I don't believe that shit for a minute. Um, but when that store's not there anymore. That
Yeah.
thing has been taken out because it's been placed with a Verizon wireless or it's been replaced with something else that's too new. And I'm like, I want to go back to the time when it was pretty freaking simple to live and it didn't cost like I took a break off social media, for instance. Everything when you
Hmm.
do a podcast, it starts being about promoting and all this other type of stuff and following. No, I took the break off social media. I don't care anymore. I'm
Yeah.
so into just having a conversation like I'm having with you that the follower thing, it's off my back. And I realized how big of an issue that would have been if that didn't hit me that soon, if it would have
Right.
been later down the road, because obviously we want our shows to grow and everything. But at the same time, it's like, how often do you really just like remember when the world wasn't all in the eyes of social media or the internet? It was a lot more simple of going to the store and then
Hmm.
you didn't have to be on a 30-minute phone game half the time.
Right. Well, I watch a lot of YouTube now, and it's funny how that's changed. Like, I don't watch regular television anymore. I watch YouTube now more than anything. And I'm watching I'm really into music and whatnot too. And I listen to a wide spectrum of music. I just started listening to the new Dua Lipa album, and I've been watching a lot of videos with her, like interviews and stuff on YouTube. And she's talking about when she was coming up, she put her videos on YouTube, and then this and that led to her success. And it got me thinking, I'm 40 years old. Like, there was no YouTube for the first 30 years of my life, basically. And, if you wanted to be in a band, if you wanted to be a star, if you wanted to do any of that kind of stuff in the music industry, you had to bust ass and go out and do it. And I'm not saying that, she or these people that are doing it now didn't do that. There's just a new medium for people to be able to do that kind of thing. And it's social media. social media is leading to a lot of new stars, Post Malone, for instance, and a lot of people that I probably don't have my finger on the pulse of. Um, I tend to be a fan of what I was back in the day, and I'm just now getting to where I'll find one or two newer artists that I dig and get into. I'm really digging the new Weekend record, and it's just it's completely different now. Whereas when I was younger, I was in a band, we were trying to make it big, like every band wants to do. And you had to go out and play those shows over and over and over again. Go play the little clubs that were just little dirt holes in the wall, but you had a good time doing it and trying to push your stuff out physically, sending things through the mail to record executives or whatever, trying to get people to listen to your stuff. Now there's a medium where you could just put it on YouTube, and if the right person sees it, boom, you're there. um yeah, it's social
Well,
media is a blessing and a curse
I think
at the same time.
the years shifting. It's like if back in the day, let's say, the 80s, the 90s, it was more of a time like if you go to the grocery store at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's not a whole lot of people there. So you have a more chance, get some content out there. You got to be able to promote it a little bit.
Hmm.
But then now it's like going to the grocery store, midsummer, busiest day of the year, Black Friday shopping or something, let's say,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
everybody's out there. It's like our whole view of everything, because the
Yeah.
internet has just completely like cracked our heads backwards, because of the fact
Hmm.
is everybody's doing something like that. And it's like, oh, like it's a lot different than paying a station or paying for recording time and then going to a station and trying to get your CD played, because you had to drop off multiple CDs, have a DVD maker or whatever, and print out your own CDs. Remember
Yeah.
that? It's
Hmm.
$2 per thing, and then you would charge like an extra $2 on top of that. So it's like you're making a profit of $2, all this type of stuff. That was a whole different thing. And I'm not saying I'm not afraid of change, but at the same time, a lot of this stuff was a lot easier because our grass wasn't so much. And I think
Right.
that's an issue with today, is that we are way too advertised in everything that we're doing. We don't know how to act. There's really hard to find authentic stuff nowadays.
Yeah. And it's tough when you're trying to do something like a podcast or start a YouTube channel, because you want to do something original. Everybody wants to do something original. What everybody has to realize is there's nothing original anymore. There are so many people out there that have a medium to be able to put out something that they want to do, that, when I started a podcast, I was very conflicted on whether or not to even do it, because how many people are podcasting now? How many podcasts are out there? Because it's very easy. I mean, you don't need a whole lot to do it. If you can record yourself talking and having a conversation, you can upload it onto to a host site, and they will distribute it for you. So there's options for people to just start doing this whenever they want to. And it's easy to get lost in that whole wave of what's going on. Whether you're a niche podcast where you talk about movies, you're a talk podcast like yours, there's so many different versions of things that people are doing now, and you've
It,
really just you've either got to find something unique or just continue to do it because you love to do it, and then hopefully one day people will hear it, and your audience will grow. It's so undefined on how it works now that it's just, you got to shoot your shot and see what happens.
Well, let me tell you, Josh, you're on an episode of Love Line right now, and that's really what I'm doing with all these episodes. I'm really just trying to find my secret lover. No, no. But about 2 years ago, almost three is probably when I started this thing. And in those years, now if I look up I get out of the blue, out of this, out of this, out of that. I'm like, there was none of this when I started. It was just
Yeah.
me. And then next, there's like, and it's all the same topics as me. It's all like just random convo. It's like, okay, you can copy the show, but you never copy my head, because my head
Right.
goes into different places and
Yep.
nobody can catch up with that thing.
That's
But
right.
it it is about making it kind of your own thing too. But I think it's a lot about trying to find a way to pass the time in times today that are pretty stressful. And I think
Yeah.
that's much of what a lot of people love about old nostalgia stuff. It's capturing a time period when things weren't as stressful.
Right. Well, this gave us a medium to be able to, COVID has affected all of us, and going out and having a good time with our friends, having the conversations we would normally have over dinner or drinks or whatever, or just going over to a friend's house and hanging out for a couple of hours. That was always what our conversations ended up turning into. It was either conversations about the new album that you heard that you like, the new movie you saw, movies you saw when you were a kid. And COVID really just kind of put everybody in a position. I remember right when I just decided we were going to do this, it was hard to get equipment to do podcasting or do a live stream or something, because people were buying all of it up, because that's the only way we can really be social right now, is through video, like we're doing a Zoom call with this interview right now. It's
Conversation, brother.
right. Conversation. That's right.
That,
I
that
don't
word.
see any questions anywhere.
But it's kind of like
But
simple. What happened when COVID first hit was like all the weights for anything, curling weights, dumbbells, all these things, they were all bought.
mhm,
I went to Walmart, it was completely empty, and they
yeah.
still don't have really a whole lot back in stock, because
Mhm.
that was everyone's biggest fear, was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get fat during this lockdown. And it's like, man, what whoa, like, it's this whole, it went from 0 to 100 so freaking quick.
Well, the toilet paper is what blew me away. How everybody is like, if 2020 taught us anything, is that people shit a lot, because they were afraid they weren't going to have paper to wipe their ass with, or it just says how shitty of a year this has been. Dad
Yeah.
joke, but yeah, I mean, the way people think about how this is going on now, and yeah, just buying up the weights, doing all, it's like people were in a sense preparing for the apocalypse. And while this is something that we've never experienced in my lifetime and may never experience again, or who knows, maybe it'll get worse. That's the other thing about everybody being happy that 2020 is over. There's no guarantee 2021 is going to be any better, but you've got to be positive. You've got to have a positive outlook on where you're going to be going forward. So none of us want to be in this situation forever, but it's also uncertain. I mean, we have a vaccine now, but everybody's very sarcastic about the vaccine and how it's going to affect people.
I'm
So
very, I'm
yeah.
very sarcastic about it, but
So I mean, it's it,
I,
it
I I look at it like this: what's 2021 going to hold in store, and what's ways that we can fix, or we can maybe improve life a little bit better? I look at it like maybe taking less time off social media. Maybe
Mhm.
taking a break from that thing. Maybe bring back some video stores.
Yeah.
I find that to be, what a lot of people don't understand is like when they complain about, oh, I spent too much money doing this. Well, on demand's like $8.99
Yeah.
per movie. So I'm like, let's go to where you actually are going to finalize your choice. It's like the other day, someone asked me, you want to get Chinese food? I said, yeah, sure. Let's order Chinese food. All right, but you got to pick it up. Wait, so I got to get up and go get it? Yeah, because they don't
Hmm.
deliver. It's like, fuck, I don't really want Chinese food anymore. It's like same thing
Yeah.
with the movie. When I was a
Yep.
kid, my dad would pick up a Taco 12 pack of Taco Bell. We would stop by Blockbuster. We would go inside, grab, I don't know, some Disney movie or something I wanted to watch. We go home and tear open a thing of Taco 12 pack. Like,
Yep.
those are classic times. Those, if you really
Hmm.
want a good time, if you really want that good time, you'll go up and you'll do whatever it does to make that happen.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's like people are like, "Oh, this could be a good time," but they don't really 100% into it. They're just like, "It sounds good at the time," and then 5 minutes in, they're bored as shit.
Yeah. And it's been really rough for me in our area where I live. I live in Florida, and I was affected by Hurricane Michael when it came through a couple years ago, and it tore up a lot of things around here. The only movie theater we have left is one that's a little bit of a drive from my house. There was actually two movie theaters that were literally maybe 2 blocks away from where I live that we would frequent all the time when we wanted to watch movies. And now both of those are gone.
Dude, I have a Fox gift card I got last Christmas. I don't know when the hell I'm gonna be able to use that.
Right. And it's just crazy because I'm actually going to be moving at the beginning of the year up to the Georgia area. And I'm beside myself because I'm like, oh, well, there's going to be plenty of movie theaters and options to go see movies now. But then I also have to go, well, we're also in COVID time and a lot of the theaters aren't open and are struggling. And I'm, I really don't want the theaters to go away, but I'm afraid that the further we go into this, that they're going to be less and less, almost like a video store. And then that's going to be something that we're going to reminisce about 10 or 20 years from now. It's sad because that was such a big part of my life, not just my childhood, my life. I mean, to this day, there's nothing better than going to a movie and with your friends and having a good time watching a movie. Depending on the movie, sometimes there's movies that I just want to sit at my house and watch by myself. But if there's a new movie coming, I would love to have seen Tenet in the theater. Probably doesn't mean I would have understood it anymore, but it's one of those movies that, yeah, I'm going to make my trip to the theater and see that because that's the kind of experience that movie ask of you. Same thing with Star Wars or whatever kind of fandom you have. there are certain things that I just want to go see in a theater, and there are certain things that I do want to see at home. So it could be a plus and a minus for both aspects. But I'm very afraid that the theaters are going to dwindle, almost like the blockbusters and the movie galleries and stuff, and that's going to be very, very sad for me.
So,
But
so I had someone say that same thing you just said about movie theaters not too long ago, and then I had a bunch of people saying like, "Oh, that's all you care about is movie theaters. What about COVID and all this stuff?" That's not what it is.
no.
What it is the fact of you cherish something because of nostalgia, because of love, because of a
Hmm.
passion for something, because you enjoy doing that thing. That can be transferred into anything. Same thing with me in the gym. I work at a gym. That's my thing.
Hmm.
When that
Right.
closed down, biggest thing, find weights, find weights, find weights. You
Yeah.
know, it was a really hard thing, but that's like that with anything, bowling, golfing. Everybody has something. So when that gets taken away, you don't want it to transform into something new. You like
Right.
some of the classic old stuff about it. There's a fun thing about going to movie theaters. There's a nostalgia thing about that. There's a fun thing going to gyms. There's fun thing about golfing. There's fun thing, it's everyone has their different niche outlet to it. But then when someone hears or sees something that's on that other side, like, oh, you're complaining about the movies, you complain about the gym. It's like, but you don't understand because it might not be relevant to you.
Right.
That's the main thing. It's like we're moving really, really fast and we're destroying a lot of stuff that maybe it doesn't seem like it's important to us, but it's important to somebody else. And
Right.
that's what I look at. That's what I look at. Like, okay, maybe because I didn't give a shit about this Michael's store, this stupid freaking arts and crafts store. Okay, it's not in my realm.
Yeah.
I know people that really enjoy going there, making handcrafted things, and don't really want to order off Amazon.
Yeah.
Credit cards. That's a your bank card, anything like that gets put online. But how many emails do you get a day that get tossed into spam saying there's fraud or there's something with your PayPal account that got messed up?
Right. Yeah. And it's going to be weird because, like you said, I mean, I have the things that I love. I'm worried about. Same thing. The Michael's example you just threw out is a great example. Everybody has their thing, and yeah, I mean, my wife and I were having a conversation the other day, and I ordered a couple of things off of Amazon, and I was like, I haven't even gotten a shipping notice or anything stating that my packages are available. And she's like, well, have you, like, I don't keep my ear to the ground as far as a lot of news goes. I'm kind of within my own head a lot of times. So I'm a little, you know, I don't think about some things when
You're in
until
good
I
company. You're in
and
good
yeah, until
company.
I think about them. And then she's like, have you seen the post office? Like, they have so much mail that they just cannot get it, get it sorted and get it delivered. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, holy shit, like, we're in this age where nobody's going out shopping like they did before, and everybody's ordering things online, and I can't. That's when it hit me. I was like, so many people are doing online shopping, sending things through the mail to their loved ones. The post office probably has not seen this kind of a flux of mail and packages coming through, and I'll for I mean, shit, probably in the longest time. And yeah, it really made me realize that, things have changed, because now everything is going to be delivered. It's not going to be going to the not grocery store, but like a department store, picking up a couple of sweaters and then taking them to someone's house for a Christmas gift. People are sending them through the mail. They're being safe. There's good and there's bad to that. I mean, it's good because we're not affecting people by, spreading this disease. Or, well, disease is a wrong word, but
Virus.
sickness, virus. But we're also like, oh, well, I haven't gotten my package yet. We're kind of upset because our packages haven't arrived, but now we're not thinking about the aspect that all of this stuff is happening right now, and that's changing the way things are going to be.
It's also not just that, but with some things, like my buddy was like, "Oh my god, this is the best thing to ever happen." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I just can pull up to Walmart and they put my groceries in the car." I was like, there's a laziness factor behind some of that. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's not like you don't want to be so involved in your own decadence that you basically destroy your own innocence. Like the whole concept of save that for someone that actually needs to use that. You know what I mean? There's
Hmm.
just this whole factor of like, well, now I can just do it through my phone. Now I can do it through my phone. I don't want a world where I have to work through my phone.
Right.
Whether it's safety or not, it's a factor of I like some classic stuff. I like shooting the shit with people when I go into a store. I like,
Yeah.
the experience of going out. It's like, say, I can correlate that to my grandmom who lives by herself, and she's lived by herself for the past couple of years. Her giant thing was going to the store because she got out of the house. She got out of,
Yeah.
you ever been sitting in your house like we all have for months and just want to go outside, go do something, gonna go do an activity.
Yeah.
My days off are either recording or I'm going to take a trip to the grocery store. Like it's a fucking amusement park trip or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
just because it gets me out, it lets me
Hmm.
know like, oh, like there's still other things. Oh, that's cool. That's new. Like I like seeing with my eyes rather than seeing it through a phone where it's getting advertised to me and it's being shoved in my face. We're living in an age that's progressing into technology, which is good and all for some aspects of things, but I don't think we're handling it in the best of ways.
It's best when it works in tandem with the other parts of life, instead of it being the only thing that you can rely on. A lot of us are working from home now. I actually left a job that I was with. I was with a company for 10 years, and that's a whole different story. Just wasn't happy with what I was doing anymore and decided to leave. And now I have a new job and I'm working from home. I've never worked from home before this in my life, and now yeah, it's like you said, I'm working at home for 8 hours of the day. I'm here all day. I've been trying to sell my house, so I've been working on the house whenever I'm not working, and I'm here all the time. Yesterday I just left the house and drove around because I've been here so much that it's like, hey, I just want to go see something different. And I think a lot of us are to that point now where it's just we're over being confined to our houses, or we want something that is tough to get right now. um I'm a big collector of physical media. I have so many Blu-rays that it's ridiculous. But I love going out and looking for a new movie, finding something I've either never seen before or something that's been released that I didn't know was out, like an old movie that I loved as a kid, and now I've found it on Blu-ray. I love going and doing that stuff. I'm a big comic book fan, so I love going to comic shops and thumbing through comics and finding comics that I want, and I can't do that right now, and it's sad. Um, but the thing is we really couldn't do a whole lot of it before COVID because those mediums are really just starting to die. Even comics. I mean, there's still comic stores out there and people still get paper comics. I still do, but a lot of people are reading them digitally now. It doesn't hold the same value as it did back in the 80s, 90s, 70s, whatever, because we've just gotten so digital and everything is so on demand, and it can be, I saw this meme on Facebook one time, and it was a picture of a guy back in the 80s when video equipment was huge, big VCRs, beta, giant cameras, all this stuff just kind of piled up in front of a guy, and he's standing there next to it, and it says, "All of this is in your pocket now." And it hit me hard. I was like, you know what? You're right. Like I can do everything in that's being depicted in that picture with the phone that's in my hand.
Can't even spout off bullshit without somebody Googling it either.
Yeah.
How many times did you have to be like, oh, my dad told me this? And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, that's not true because I just Googled it.
Yeah. Yeah. Google's another one that's a blessing and a curse. Like I like when somebody can ask something and I can answer that question, but I also hate when I have to Google because I don't know. And it's almost, it has a little bit of a heartbreak factor to it because it's sometimes you just don't want to be able to access something so easily. Like I remember one time my wife and I were talking about something and it was like, "Do you remember this? Don't use your phone. Don't use your phone. Just think back. Can you remember blah 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 blah?" And we couldn't do it. Like we had to Google, and it was like, and even when we're watching movies or anything like that, or something comes up, it's like, "How old is that guy?" "I don't know. He looks like he's probably mid 40s." "Well, I'll find out. I'll Google it right now." It's so easy to get that information now, and I've I've really kind of struggled a little bit because social media has become a platform for everyone to have a voice. And honestly, I'm kind of a firm believer in everybody doesn't deserve a voice. There are some people out there that have no business saying some things that they say or putting things out on social media that they do, but this has given us all this platform to air out whatever we want to without any kind of repercussion of it being a face-to-face sort of thing. you
That's
know
that's the
it,
problem with the whole thing is with fame is that are people doing it because they actually want to be liked? Or are they doing it because they know that being hated by more people will get them more attention? Like I have a Twitter and then I have my other Twitter. And the other Twitter, if you look at you follow that one. So you see when I comment on someone's photo, I'm commenting on like people with PhDs, and the woman's like, I practice science today, and starts going off and kind of bragging in a
Hmm.
tweet. And you can tell if somebody's bragging, like, I
Yeah.
just got the lowest equity loan. And you're like, why are you just trying to show off? Start
Yeah.
bragging like I did science today. I just commented. I was like, I did science too. I made an egg. I was practicing combustion and also at the same time heat conduction as a joke. And then
Hmm.
she got offended. I was like, but that's the thing. You make that Twitter and it's like, well, it's not me behind it. So it's like, I can just do this and that. It's not going to come back onto me. But it's like,
Right.
that's the whole idea of this technological age we're in, where finding something that's authentic is really freaking hard. I mean, I've been accused of it multiple times of people are like, you're not authentic. I'm like, dude, I've been doing this 600 something episodes. If I have something I don't want to talk about, I won't talk about it. If I have something I'm
Yeah.
just generally interested in the person I'm talking to.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
there's a big difference in having an opinion and putting something out that people would find concrete. Like that's the other thing that's kind of gotten a little out of hand with social media and everyone having this platform to put information out there is people believe the wrong information now. There's has been, when the election was going on and all of this information was coming about whichever side of the part, whichever party you were part of, everybody's so quick to believe the shit they're seeing on Facebook, the shit they're seeing on Twitter, and they're believing things that are coming from people that have no reason to be putting information out on the internet other than that it's their opinion or they're passionate about something, but they're not stating facts. We've put so much time now into people believing things that either aren't truths or are false truths or are partially true and not depending on the actual truth of things anymore. We're just so willing to believe whatever people throw out into the internet nowadays.
I
And
think
it's,
our lives are more like a movie than any movie we've ever seen. The
yeah,
issue was like, even with the debate, like, I mean, my issue was I don't like games. I'm not a fan of any type of game because anything in life people consider there has to be a winner and a loser, which
right.
turns it all into a game, which I think is ridiculous. I
Hmm.
didn't like how I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Biden supporter. I didn't vote. I don't care. Give me shit for it. Whoever. I don't care. The concept was I didn't like having to choose a least choice, but at the same time, when like the Hunter Biden laptop situation came out, this
Hmm.
whole terrible things that were on his email or terrible things that was on his computer that happened in the state right next to me, so I know it was true.
Yeah.
But then on Twitter, anything that was posted, all the recents were deleted. All the Instagram recents you couldn't find. They wouldn't show you that because it would affect the election because of that information being out. And I was like, it's a game.
Yeah.
If Trump, that would have came out on Trump, then Mark, whatever Zuckerberg, who's pro Biden, would have released all that shit and let you see all of it. But he took it out because he controls that part of the media. It's a big thing with networking. You're never supposed to own multiple news networks because then you can control influence through that.
Hmm.
It's this whole fucking thing of like people. I understand people's right to believe something and people's anger from it, but it
Right.
doesn't make sense because when you take out the aspect of having a conversation, you turn it into a fucking debate. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What, we're never going to come to a conclusion. We're going to make the world worse. We're going to make people more confined. Next thing you know, you're never going to be able to leave your house because everything's going to be like, well, I can't do it. I know so many businesses in my town that shut down because they were just so tired of dealing with people. And it
Hmm.
was because everyone's getting so aggressive. Everyone's got this already at level 10, like they're driving. And that's with
Right.
everything in the world now. And I'm like, I don't want a world where it's going to be hostile. I don't want it to be like Wally either, where we're sitting on floating beds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like that idea.
No, me neither. And as much as I've seen parallels to Wally nowadays, like I, yeah, the convenience of it would be great sometimes, but I mean, you watch Wally and you see all of this stuff going on in that movie, and you're like, this is sad. But the reality of it is we're growing closer and closer to it every day. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's just so much gray area when it comes to information on social media and the internet in general. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I remember all of these things coming up. Then you'd see them on Facebook, and you'd see them here and see them there, and blah 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 blah. And people are taking things either out of context and putting them up and saying one thing about it when it actually meant another, or saying things about Trump or even Biden that were like, he said this. Well, yeah, he said it, but what context was it in? Or no, he didn't actually say that. He didn't say that at all. Like, you can manufacture things, put it out there on the internet, and people are going to buy into it because of their belief system or what party they're in. And it causes so much more gray area where there shouldn't be any. And it's unfortunately the society we live in now, that it's going to continue to muck up what we do in that aspect of things now. And you're gonna be you're going to have to dig more and more to find the truth in things. Whereas right now we're just seeing so much gray, and we're either going to believe it or we're going to throw it to the side. And either way, it's dangerous because, you know, it may be the truth, it may not, but who knows? And if it is, then it could affect things negatively. And then we're in a worse situation. There's just so much that I think is dangerous about it, but we've given a platform to everyone to kind of air that stuff out, and it just makes things very, very difficult. And I think, you know, we're experiencing that now with the COVID stuff and the election and fraud and all of that. And it's like, come on, like,
it,
there
it's
has to be an easier way to get through all of this. But
it's what led me into why I really kind of love your podcast concept, and I love the idea of it, is because I believe the biggest fix is one of the things we can't do, and that's being a community. You know, we
yeah.
talk so much about building one up, but some of the biggest things that bring us together are things where we need to be together. We need
Hmm.
to be playing fucking bingo, and some dude goes, 8 across, got bingo. And it's like, did that motherfucker got bingo? And it's like,
Yep.
you would check and then false card, and then everybody would be all pissed off, like, all right, don't clear your boards yet. Um,
Yep.
Going to, I remember all the time at campgrounds. Literally, that is the perfect example. I would be at a campground with maybe 100, 200 other campers there. Nobody I fucking knew. My dad was like, all right, I'm going to set up, go explore. They had a community event. They would play old VHS movies at the arcade.
Hmm.
Go in there. There's a bunch of people you've never met before, and you got to learn people. You got to talk to people. You got to enjoy and understand who another person was. Oh, you're from Texas? Wow, what's that like? And then you get this whole, you get to meet friends. Next thing you know, you're cycling around with other kids in the neighborhood or other kids in the campground or something. There's bonding
Yeah.
experiences, but the whole fear of we're not able to do that because we need social distance. It's like, there's just, the only cure I see is that. And that's the thing, is like, when will that be able to do? Hopefully in time. But at the same time, it's like, it's something about being a community where you literally are caring about the other person because you actually know who they are rather than just seeing what they post. It's
Yeah.
so fucking important.
Hmm. A friend of mine actually said something the other day, and it resonated with me more than anything I've seen in the past, 3 or 4 years. It was, I would not have the friends I have today if it weren't for music. And that holds so true with me, because in school, I was into music more than anything in the world, that and movies. And I was all about that, all about being entertained, whether it be through film or through music or anything of that nature. I played in bands as a teenager. I was in bands as an adult. I've played shows, and I've made so many friends and connections just through having a love for music and movies. And have some of my closest friends in the world because we share a love for those sort of things. I wouldn't have that. I can't imagine being in this world today where everything is so distant and everybody is so confined that they don't want to experience new things or meet new people. Now, that being said, I'm also a very big introvert. I'm one of these people that a lot of the times when you ask me if I want to go do something, I'm kind of hesitant to do it. But when I do go do things, I as much as I dread wanting to go do them, after I'm there in the moment, I love that I went out and did it. Sometimes people just need that little push, and it makes all the difference in the world. And yeah, I mean, whereas I think I would be happy sitting here alone a lot of the time, I'm experiencing it a lot now, and I'm realizing this is not how I'm supposed to be living. It's very difficult. So much so that I just want to go drive around because I want to get out of my house. I would love to be able to go over and hang out with my buddy who lives not very far away from me, but we're so scared. And in this thing about COVID, about people, like one of the people on my podcast, my friend Jason, he actually lives in Texas. He doesn't live here local, but he unfortunately has COVID right now, and he's having to sit out some episodes. And even though he's not here, someone very close to me has been affected by all of this. And it just enrages me more that we weren't able to do something sooner. We weren't able to do anything at all, or uh, whatever side of the fence you stand on about how all this works. It still just angers me that we're in a spot where someone so close to me has been affected by what's going on right now, and it's just hard. This is a hard time in life, but there are pluses to it. I mean, a lot of what's happened for me this year has led to a lot more new, bigger, better things. Um, I was so hesitant about doing a podcast because, like we discussed earlier, it's one of these things that everybody's doing now. And how do you stand out in a crowd full of millions? But it's fun for me. It's fun to get on and have a conversation with you and get on with my friends and just talk about movies because it's what we love to do. So there are pluses to this. It's helped me get closer to some people because I'm reaching out through these means and being able to reconnect with some people in that way. But it doesn't beat me wanting to be in the same room with these people and have a face-to-face conversation. There's still a little bit to it that seems fake, but we're just doing the best we can with it right now, you know?
I think the one thing people need to focus on is trying never really, it's nice to stay in that safe zone, that comfort zone to build walls up, but it's such a more free feeling when you're actually getting to know another person, when you're,
Hmm.
you know, understanding that life is much more than just the four walls that you're surrounded by. It's this whole thing, and it can be whatever you honestly make it, not to sound corny, but it in this time nowadays where it seems like everyone's kind of like the hope's been shot, like they're a horse with three legs or something. I'm like, yo, like there's a lot of good. You just kind of got to really look for it, and it sucks that that's what you have to do. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a big motivational guy. I'm not a big like I follow all these motivational pages. No, it's just like you got to find it for yourself, man. There's
Yeah.
answers out there too. And it's like, it's funny. I just came across a friend who had COVID on, he posted on Snapchat, and I'll say, this is how I'm finding out through Snapchat rather than finding out through talking to you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest awakener in the world where like, I'm not even on my phone. I think the most time I spend on anything is on Dragon City. Cause that game fucking just kills me. I don't know why that thing's got my attention. It's got me locked in like a laser beam, but just really like you gotta start getting to know, like I love personal interaction. I love meeting people face to face, even if I were at a social distance or something,
Yeah.
because you get a different vibe, you get a different energy in the room, and it does suck time sometimes. I want to stay home,
Yeah.
but not forever.
Right.
I want to still do what I want to do. I'm happy that you gave me the ability to have a conversation with you today.
Yeah.
We're two complete different different people, random strangers, never knew each other before, and the next we're shooting the shit. Anybody can
Yeah.
do that if they use social media in the best of ways, but instead we want to brag about things that we have, and we kind of really want to poke and try and prod and see who we can get upset. And it's like that to me is why I'm like I don't want to ever be on this thing more than 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I mentioned I left my job that I was at for 10 years. It's one of these things where sometimes people need a push and sometimes people need to realize things for themselves. But I just kind of, and I'm not usually one to air my stuff on social media, but I did get on Facebook and I was like, listen, I just want to say this. I'm not usually one to air this, but you can make things happen. I was very unhappy in my job. It seems like it's going to be scary. It is scary. It's going to be hard to not do something that you don't want to do anymore because you've gotten so locked into the financial side of things as an adult, and you want to be comfortable. And I just decided that I did not want to do this job anymore, and I left. But I made things happen after that. I think a lot of people think that if they stop doing something that they're unhappy doing, they're going to have to learn something new and they're going to have to take a different path, and they're not going to be comfortable. You're right. You're not going to be comfortable. You are going to have to take a different path, but you have to make things happen. And if you're not happy, then that's what's important. Stop being unhappy and start making different things happen. And that's kind of where I was at, and that's what I realized. It's like, okay, I wasn't happy for a long time. I decided that I was going to start making things happen and get happy again. Now I'm at a different job that I'm enjoying a lot more. They are gracious enough to realize what the situation is in our climate right now, that they let me work from home. I'm got my friends together and I was like, let's do this podcast. We've talked about it for the longest time. We've been so afraid to do it. Let's do it. This is the time to do it. So it, people
You
just
can't
have to,
spend your time rewinding the tape.
you cannot, yeah, you cannot go back. You cannot change what's happened. You can only go forward. So just make what you want to happen, and just don't look back. Keep going the straight path. Don't go behind. And again, this is one of those things where when I'm talking about music with people, or if I think an album is really good, I'll tell somebody, you need to listen to this, you need to listen to this. And until someone is ready to do something or ready to hear something, they're not going to do it. So you can suggest things to people, you can tell people that things can be different, you can tell people you can leave your job and things won't fall apart, but until they realize it for themselves, that's the key. Like, people have to come upon things on their own. That's going to drive them to change. You're not going to do it. You're just a voice telling them. You are basically social media, just, telling someone to do something that they maybe aren't comfortable doing right now. They have to get to the point where they're comfortable. They're willing to step out of that comfort zone and go, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm going to make something different happen.
Any
So,
advice I've ever given to, like, I've started probably 20 something podcasts for people. I've helped their shows grow and stuff. And I tell
mhm,
them, I'm like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And they're like, okay, I'm hearing you. I'm like, all right, you're going to do what you're going to do and you're going to
yeah,
discover it yourself. And then
mhm,
always they come back around being like, you were right. You were right. I'm like, I know, because I went through the same shit,
yeah,
but I understand it. Every time
yeah,
I've ever told anybody, you're going to come to the grips with it yourself. So either you can listen to me or you can just do it and find out on your own. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm going to be there, obviously, when it backfires or something, but at the same time, you have to come to grips to that to yourself. I touched a light bulb many a times because they were like, you don't do that, you're going to burn your finger. Okay, sure. And they
yeah,
walk away, touch the light bulb, burn your finger. You got
yep.
to find out that stuff for yourself. That's what life's an adventure for.
Mm-hmm. It's all about learning and growing. You learn that in your jobs that you do. It's like people are so afraid to get into a new position or to do something because they're going to make a mistake. Everyone's going to make mistakes. The problem is the thing about making mistakes is if you make a mistake, it just shows that you're trying. You just didn't get it right this time. Learn from it, get it right the next time. And yeah, I mean, people get hung up on. I'm not really into the motivational stuff like you said, but I did kind of discover Gary V in my journey here lately, and I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but he's very into, like, you know don't
I've
look
talked so much
backwards.
shit on Gary V.
I,
I don't like
I,
people selling it. I like it if it's free.
I found him at this time where I kind of needed a little bit of a spark, and I think it helped with that. I'm by no means like pushing him on people, but I do like to tell people that when I heard some of the things he says, it did spark a little bit of something in me to change a little bit. And the biggest thing that he says that I'm a big proprietor of is not caring about what people think of you. Just do what you want to do. And a lot of people, myself included, are so worried about what other people are going to think of me or you or whoever. And that is such a toxic thing to think about. Like, who cares what people think of you?
It's called Johnny Depp confidence, when you can go to the store with like sweatpants on and not give a shit.
Yep. Yep.
It's
So
a
so much so that I've kind of been in that position now. Like, I would be so concerned about going out in public about what I'm wearing and whatnot. Now it's just like, fuck it. I got fucking sweat shorts on and flip flops, and I don't care. I don't give a shit. It's just, I am who I am, and if you don't like me, then that's fine. I mean, I'm still gonna do what I do, and a lot of people have trouble with that kind of confidence, and I don't even know if I would call it confidence, but just being comfortable in that way. So that was really the big thing that I grabbed from Gary V. Now, there's a lot more that he does that I don't subscribe to, but he did, like, finding him and him kind of talking about that sort of got me in a position where I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. And you're right. Like, I am putting too much thought into what people think, and who cares? I should just do what I want to do. And that's that, and be happy. So, but yeah, I mean, I've never been one to listen to motivational speakers or anything like that. It's just kind of been one of those things. But something he said resonated with me there at a time, and that's where I've kind of taken from that and went forward. I don't spend a whole lot of time watching his stuff now, but I
Well,
did,
here's how it shows how you should think. Even if I don't like Gary Vee, I heard you say all that, and I just went because it works for you.
yeah,
It's not fit for me. None of that stuff fits for me. Everybody's so different and everybody's so unique. But if you find something that gets you into the next day, gets you through the day today, then go for it. And a lot of people don't think in that mindset. And I think that's the issue, is that you
yeah.
need to understand there are things that aren't made for you. There's things that are made for other people, but there's a way that someone tries to make it to the next day. Cause I believe that's all we're all trying to do is make it to the next day, make it
Mhm.
today as well.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, the other thing that kind of drove me with him is the whole podcasting thing. He there's one of his talks that he did that was like, I know someone is at home not happy in their job when they know they could talk Friends all day long. They could talk about every single episode of Friends. They could talk about the background of Friends. They could talk about the stars, and they're unhappy in their job when they could potentially be doing a podcast talking about Friends and being happy. And that was another thing that kind of drove me. I was like, you know what? Never thought of it that way. And we're in a position nowadays with technology being what it is that we can make that sort of stuff happen. Um, so that was another thing that kind of drove me a little bit.
Well, let me ask you, do you think it's going to be a brighter future forward? Or are you hoping brighter future forward?
I'm very optimistic. Like I said, there's a lot of negative that's happened to me personally in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years. Like I said, I went through Hurricane Michael. Didn't destroy my house, but did some pretty negative things to it. It had a lot of repairs and renovations we had to do, but because of that hurricane, we were able to improve on our house a lot more than we'd always had dreams of doing certain things to our house, like opening it up and making it more open concept. Until this hurricane hit us, we had no way of doing that. Hurricane hit, our insurance paid us for our damages, and we did what we wanted to do to our house. We got it looking very good, and now it's at a point where we can sell it for more than we bought it for originally, and we can move on to a bigger, better thing. There's always a plus to find somewhere, and it's the same thing with COVID. I mean, it got me in a position to where I was so fed up with the job that I was doing that I decided it was time to leave it. And where that could be scary for a lot of people, I I didn't let it hinder me. I just was like, okay, now it's time to move on to the next chapter. We're now building a house in a new city. That's a lot more opportunity than where I currently live. And some of our best friends in the world live there. And I'm doing a podcast and I'm having a good time talking about movies with my friends. So COVID, even though it's very negative and we don't know how the future is going to be with everything that's changing, I'm I'm still very positive about where we're going to be moving forward, because even though things are different, things are changing and things are getting better for me. Might not be getting better for some people. There's going to be a lot of struggle, but it's either
It's not an end.
it's going to be what you make of it. You're either going to suffer or you're going to progress.
It's not an
Um,
end. It's new beginnings.
yeah. And this may afford us to be able to change things in a different way. Like you said, maybe after this is all over, we'll have such a need for needing to get out and do new things that maybe video stores will make a comeback like vinyl has. I mean, people love vinyl now and it's been gone for years. um
I'm glad you said that rather than I thought you were going to say Vine. I was like, let's keep that dead. That's like TikTok. Just end that one, please.
I never was into Vine. I've recently discovered TikTok, but I've made myself a little bit of a rule. Like I can only watch TikTok if I'm sitting on the toilet or if I'm laying in bed. Other than that, throughout the rest of the day, there's no TikTok allowed.
Depending on how long your shits are, that might be an issue.
True. I think there has been a little more time spent in the bathroom than there should have been at some points in time. But yeah, I mean, it was fun and you do get kind of down a rabbit hole with it there for a little while, but it starts to be the same thing over and over again. And I'm starting to see that now, but it has afforded a lot of people some success in this time. I mean, there are some people on there that are now, you know, professional TikTokers, almost like the professional YouTubers and podcasters. So if that's the medium that got them where they are, I'm more power to them. But to this day, like I've never made a TikTok. I don't know how to get on there and do what they do. But I do enjoy getting on there and seeing some of the things that people come up with. Some of it is funny, some of it is pretty, but I'm definitely not one of these people that spends hours upon hours on TikTok for sure.
I'm definitely hoping I'm probably going to end up hitting it when it's dead. Like it's like with Twitter. It kind of like Twitter wasn't super huge, and then I finally made a Twitter after all the hype died down from it. It's like I like it when it's like seems like it's past its prime a little bit because I'm like I like it when it's kind of used so it still loves me back.
We'll bring back MySpace. Somebody contact Tom.
Woo! MySpace. I'm down with that. Well, Josh, you given me enough of your time, man. Do you want to promote the podcast? Let people know where they can find you at?
Yeah, man. We're at VHS Files Podcast on any of the social media. We're always putting up what our next episodes are going to be and everything there. We've got our newest episode on Scrooged is out, and we're recording our Home Alone episode tonight, and that'll be out next Friday on Christmas Day for everybody. And again, it's
Next
just one of
Friday is
those.
Christmas Day.
Yep, next. Or I'm sorry, that's Christmas Eve. Sorry, it'll be out on Christmas Eve. Saturday is Christmas, so. No. Hold on. You've got me thinking about this now.
What
Yeah,
day are
next
we
Friday's
on?
Christmas.
Okay.
We're Sunday. I don't know what today is.
It's not next
yeah,
Friday. It's this Friday.
Oh, shit. You're right. I always think of Sunday as the last day of the week. But yeah, it'll be out this Friday on Christmas Day.
I was like, shit, the year's passing by, bro.
And then our last movie of the year this year is going to be Die Hard, which it'll come out on New Year's Day, but we'll be talking Die Hard on New Year's Day. And it's just me and a group of my friends talking about movies, going back and reminiscing about our nostalgia for video stores and how these movies affected us as kids and now as adults and how we go back to them. And we just have a really good time talking about these old movies and just in the time of COVID needing an outlet to get that conversation out there and have a good time. So we've been making the most out of it. Haven't missed an episode every Friday since we started doing it. And we tend to keep it going as long as we can.
Just don't post every day because that shit gets exhausting.
I like to edit our stuff down because I feel like a lot of things that end up in some people's podcasts is a lot of downtime that could be, or a lot of extra meat that could be cut out. So I consider myself to be a pretty good editor, and I like to take enough time to record, go through and chop out the stuff that's not really going to work too well. So I spend a lot of time there, but, yeah, I could never afford myself an everyday thing because just editing is too important to me about making sure we put out a good show, and with what we're doing and how long we talk, sometimes that takes up a lot of my time. So yeah,
I'm gonna end it with one question though.
Go for it.
Die Hard Christmas movie or no?
We just had this discussion on another podcast that I guest hosted on. I consider Die Hard a Christmas movie.
What?
It's
on Christmas. That doesn't make it a Christmas movie. Gremlins isn't a Christmas movie.
I still consider Gremlins a Christmas movie as well.
The fudge.
it all for me. It's that time of year when I watch it, and also the setting that it's in. I mean, Die Hard taking place at Christmas time. I was just on another podcast called Not a Bomb where they talk.
Are you promoting others on my show? Oh, that's a sin. No, I'm just kidding.
But they brought this up as well because one of the hosts on that show doesn't consider it a Christmas movie, and there's plenty of debate there. And I think I set the record straight. I was like, let's get it straight here, guys. Die Hard is an any time of the year movie, plain and simple. But I choose to watch it after Christmas. I feel like it's a great New Year's movie to watch, but it still fits in the holiday theme. So yeah, I mean, it's a part of my regular Christmas roster. If you don't think it's a Christmas movie, fine. That's completely fine with me. It's a good movie, no matter how you slice it. So, but yeah, I am a Die Hard around Christmas time kind of guy. So I lump it in with my Christmas movies.
But Jaws is number one, right?
Jaws is still number one. I haven't had any movie surpass it yet.
I
thought Pulp Fiction would have been it for a long time, but I just can't let go of how great of a movie Jaws is. Even I think Jaws is so great because of how flawed it was.
I'm gonna agree because it's my all-time favorite movie. I'm happy that someone shares my enthusiasm for it.
Yeah, and I'm the day Hollywood remakes Jaws is the day I'm gonna have a very big offense for Hollywood, because it's just one of those movies that is always going to stay timeless, and it does not need to be updated. It's perfect the way it is. It's perfect in its faults. I'll put it that way. Like, even though there are bad things in that movie that people can rip apart and say the shark looks fake or whatever, it doesn't change the fact that that movie hits everything you need to be a good movie. Um,
The
you
beauty's in
know,
the imperfections.